Todd Gurley is not your typical average running back. And you're going to have a drop-off over the course of an entire season if you don't have Todd Gurley, the guy we saw in years past.
The Los Angeles Rams, who went 13-3, and then lost the Super Bowl by, I think, that score, coincidentally enough.
Did they?
13-3, right? We'd have to.
I don't think that's why I'm thinking they're going to decline in 2019, but I do think they're not going to be quite as good as they were a year ago.
Why not?
So you start with the health, right? We saw what happened with this Rams team last year. They were one of the healthiest teams in all of football. And when they had injuries, it was to a guy like Todd Gurley, for example. And they were able to replace Todd Gurley. I don't know if there are guys in this roster they can replace. Someone like a Jared Goff, or an Aaron Donald, or an Andrew Whitworth, or a Brandon Cooks. There are guys in this roster who I think are irreplaceable, who have managed to stay healthy for 16 games year after year, and that's a tough ask in the NFL. It's just hard to pull it off year after year after year. And I don't know, maybe you think Blake Bortles would be just as good as this offense as Jared Goff would be, but I'm skeptical.
No, I think you might see an increase in turnovers, theoretically, with Bortles, just given maybe his history. But Whitworth's been so important for them. I mean, such a gigantic free agent signing a couple of years ago. But you're talking about a guy who's, 38 years old and, talked about maybe retiring and didn't. So I think that's an area to watch. It was last year, right? If things fall apart on the offensive line, then that could be a problem. They didn't. But, it's always worth watching. They've drafted that position, the offensive line, the last couple of years because they know it's coming. But if it were to arrive earlier than expected, the offensive line trouble, that could be a big issue for Sean McVay.
Absolutely. If you lose the wrong guy, this offense isn't going to fall apart, but it's not going to work on quite the same level it had been in years past. And we've talked about this with the Rams this offseason. We don't know what we're going to get out of Gurley. He could play 300 carries again and be an awesome running back. He could get 150 carries and not be the same guy on his knee. This was a team that didn't want to play him, it seemed like, in the playoffs last year and preferred a guy off the street in C.J. Anderson. They drafted Darrell Henderson. You figure he's going to help, but Todd Gurley's Todd Gurley. And even if, I'm public enemy number one for running backs thinking they're replaceable, Todd Gurley is not your typical average running back. And you're going to have a drop-off over the course of an entire season if you don't have Todd Gurley, the guy we saw in years past, for 16 games.
Because of what they ask him to do, right? I mean, even you'd have to use multiple guys and have them hopefully be as dynamic in spurts as he is all the time. So yeah, that's a big worry going forward. Looking back, what did they do last year that makes you think they can't possibly do that again?
A couple things here. So 6-1 in one-score games, and even for great teams, that's hard to pull off year after year. Typically, you win about half of those games. Top of that, they led the league, recovered 71% of fumbles in their games a year ago, which you think it's not it's one of those things where if you just coach your players to go after the ball, the thing is, everyone coaches their players to go after the ball. No coach is in practice saying, hey, don't worry about the fumble.
Let the other team get it.
It'll probably bounce to us anyway. Historically, that's been impossible to pull off year after year after year, and it is pretty meaningful in terms of, giving your own team short drives and creating big plays for your defense. That's not going to happen year after year. And this is a team that we know, outside of Aaron Donald, there are questions about the pass rush here. Clay Matthews has not been a good player, or not been a great pass rusher for several years now. So Wade Phillips is a great coach. You figure he's going to make stuff happen. Aaron Donald's still a superstar, but certainly a defense that took a step backwards last year and might not be able to take a step forward to where they were in 2017, now here in 2019.
That fumble recovery stat's amazing. I go back, when I started covering football a long time ago, Mike Westhoff is special teams coach with the Dolphins. He once told me, that ball is not round and it bounces funny, meaning you have no idea sometimes where it's going to end up. But if we look at the Rams, 13-3, monster year. They just wanted to win one more game and it would have been the year of their lives. If they were to not take a step back, if they want to take a step forward this year, is there anything underneath the numbers that indicates that maybe they could do that?
I don't know about the numbers. I just trust Sean McVay.
Yeah.
Right? He's really good at his job. And you'd figure this is a young team. Jared Goff, Brandon Cooks, Marcus Peters, Aaron Donald. So many players who are superstars at their respective positions in the prime of their careers. The ceiling might not be much higher than 13. It's just hard to go 14-2 or 15-1. But in terms of their pure talent level, this is a scary team. So I think it's very hard to believe they're going to be bad. I think it's just more likely that they go 10-6 or 11-5 than it is if they go 14-2 or 15-1.
And the other thing I wonder is who's coming for them. I mean, look, Seattle showed last year we can't rule them out, but they still don't look like what they were.
Sure.
The 49ers, we haven't seen it yet, and who knows how it's going to go in Arizona with the new kid quarterback and kid coach, quite frankly. So we'll see. That's what we think about the Rams in terms of 2019. Keep watching to find out which other teams we think could take steps forward or backward in 2019. And for more premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN+.